Michael Rennie was an English film, television, and stage actor, perhaps best known for his 1951 starring role as the space visitor Klaatu in the 20th Century Fox classic science fiction film The Day the Earth Stood Still. In a career spanning more than 30 years, Rennie appeared in 50-plus films and in several American television series. Early years. Eric Alexander Rennie was born in Idle near Bradford, a West Riding of Yorkshire. He received his education at the Leys School, Cambridge. Rennie tried out a number of occupations, including periods as car salesman and as the manager of his uncle's rope factory, before deciding on a career as an actor, retaining his surname but adopting Michael as his professional name. The 6 feet 4 inches tall Rennie first appeared on screen in an uncredited bit part in the Alfred Hitchcock film Secret Agent. During the late 1930s, Rennie served his apprenticeship as an actor, gaining experience while touring the regions in repertory theatre. There is evidence that, at the age of 28, he was noticed by one of the British film studios, which arranged a screen test. The 1937 screen test, which exists in the British Film Institute archives under the title Marguerite Allen and Michael Rennie Screen Test, did not lead to a film career for either performer. In Secret Agent, he was primarily a stand-in for leading man Robert Young. He also played other bit parts and minor unbilled roles in 10 additional films produced between 1936 and 1940. By the time the last of these was released, Pimpernel Smith, Rennie was serving in the Royal Air Force. Second World War. Shortly after the outbreak of war in Europe on 3 September 1939, Rennie began to receive offers for larger film roles, starting with his first billed performance in the wartime morale booster The Big Blockade, seen in March 1940. 6 films later, Rennie had his first film lead. The suspense drama Tower of Terror starred Wilfred Lawson as a crazed Dutch lighthouse keeper in the German-occupied Netherlands, while the second-billed Rennie and third-billed movie to had the romantic leads. Rennie enlisted in the RAF Volunteer Reserve on 27 May 1941. He was officially discharged on 4 August 1942, and then on the following day, he was commissioned, for the emergency, as Pilot Officer No. 127,347 on probation in the General Duties Branch of the RAFVR. On 5 February 1943, he was promoted to Flying Officer on probation. He resigned his commission on 1 May 1944. Rennie had carried out his basic training near Torquay in Devon, after which he was sent to the United States for fighter pilot training under the Arnold Plan. In this program, pilots for the RAF were trained by United States Army Air Forces instructors. One of his fellow students was RAF Sergeant Jack Morton, who told an anecdote about when he and Rennie were in the same class. At the end of our primary course we were posted to a basic flying school at Cochrane Field, Macon, Georgia. The class which completed the course at Cochrane Field was now split up. Half were posted to Napier Field, Dothan, Alabama, to train on single-engine planes, and the remainder were posted to twin-engine schools. Like Cochrane, Napier Field was a large permanent Air Corps base and most of us were quite content to stay on the camp when we had time off. One of the cadets on our course had told us that he was a film actor, but no one took him seriously. With the end of the war in Europe in May 1945, Rennie began to be seen as a potential star as a result of playing second leads in 2 vehicles for Britain's most popular leading actress of the era, Margaret Lockwood. The musical I'll Be Your Sweetheart and, most prominently, the sensual costume adventure The Wicked Lady. The latter turned out to be the year's biggest box office hit, subsequently being listed 9th on a list of top 10 highest-grossing British films. He also had a single prominent scene as a commander of Roman centurions in Gabriel Pascal's financially disastrous production of George Bernard Shaw's Caesar and Cleopatra, starring Vivien Leigh and Claude Rains. second leads and then leads in 7 other British films produced between 1946 and 1949 followed, including what may be considered Michael Rennie's only role as one of 2 central characters in a fully fledged love story. In the 47-minute episode, Sanatorium, the longest of the Somerset Maugham tales constituting the omnibus film trio, the 40-year-old Rennie and the 20-year-old John Simmons play patients and doomed lovers in the title Institution, which caters to victims of tuberculosis. Simmons would, in fact, turn out to be Rennie's most frequent co-star. Although they shared no scenes in their minor roles in Caesar and Cleopatra, it was the first of their films together. They also appeared in 2 20th Century Fox epics. In the Robinette sequel, Demetrius and the Gladiators, Rennie played the Apostle Peter, while Simmons portrayed a Christian martyr. In the sequel, they were only briefly seen in a flashback. Their final, shared film was Desiree. He was again billed fourth, after Marlon Brando, Simmons, and Merle-Oberon. Rennie's character, French Marshal Jean-Baptiste Bernadotte, marries Desiree after Napoleon abandons her for Josephine. 20th Century Fox. Rennie, along with Simmons and the Wicked Lady leading man James Mason, was one of a number of British actors offered Hollywood contracts in 1949-50 by 20th Century Fox's studio head, Darrell F. Zanuck. The first film under his new contract was the British-filmed medieval period adventure The Black Rose, starring Tyrone Power, who became one of Rennie's closest friends. Fifth billed after the remaining first-tier stars Orson Welles, Cecil Aubrey and Jack Hawkins. Rennie was specifically cast as 13th century King Edward I, whose 6 feet 2 inches frame gave origin to his historical nickname, Longshanks. Rennie's second Fox film gave him 4th billing in the top tier. The 13th Letter, directed by his future nemesis and love rival Otto Preminger, was a remake of the French film Le Corbeau, with the setting changed to the Canadian province of Quebec. After Claude Rains turned down the role, Rennie received top billing in his next film, The Day the Earth Stood Still, the first post-war, large-budget, science fiction film. It was a serious, high-minded exploration of mid-20th century suspicion and paranoia, combined with a philosophical overview of humanity's coming place in the larger universe. The story was later dramatized in 1954 on Lux Radio Theatre, with Rennie and Billy Gray recreating their original film roles. 7 years later, on the 3rd of March 1962, when The Day the Earth Stood Still made its television premiere on NBC's NBC Saturday Night at the Movies, Rennie appeared in a 2-minute introductory prologue before the start of the film. Buoyed by the strong critical reception and profitability of the film, Fox assigned much of the credit to the central performance of Rennie. Convinced that it had a potential leading man under contract, the studio decided to produce a version of Les Miserables as a vehicle for him. The film, released on 14 August 1952, was directed by All Quiet on the Western Front's Louis Milestone. Rennie's performance was respectfully, but not enthusiastically, received by the critics. Ultimately, Les Miserables turned in an extremely modest profit and put an end to any further attempts to promote the 43-year-old Rennie as a potential star. He was, however, launched on a thriving career as a top supporting actor, as in Sailor of the King. Based on the positive reaction to his 2 turns as the Apostle Peter, Fox assigned him another third-billed, top-tier role as a stalwart man of God, Franciscan friar Junipero Serra, who, between 1749 and his death in 1784, founded missions in Alta California. The film was 7 Cities of Gold, with Richard Egan and Anthony Quinn. During this period Rennie starred in Dangerous Crossing under contract with 20th Century Fox. a black-and-white noirish mystery film. It was directed by Joseph M. Newman, also starred Gene Crane, and was based on the play Cabin B-13 by John Dixon Carr. The production reused sets and props from Titanic, for which Rennie spoke the closing narration. His next film was the last under his 5-year contract with 20th Century Fox. The Reigns of Ranchipper assigned him fifth billing after the lead romantic teaming of Lana Turner and Richard Burton. As Turner's character's cuckolded husband, Lord Esgyrth, Rennie maintained his typical dignity and stiff upper lip. Post-20th Century Fox. Now a freelancer, Rennie appeared in 6 additional features between 1956 and 1960, 3 of which were produced or released by Fox. Rennie appeared as adventurer Lord John Roxton in director Irwin Allen's adaptation of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's The Lost World, a tale of a jungle expedition that finds prehistoric monsters in South America. The film also starred Claude Rains, Jill Street, John and Richard Haydn. No longer bound by the no television clause in his studio contract, he began his association with the medium. The Third Man series in television. Rennie became a familiar face on television, taking the role of Harry Lime in The Third Man, an Anglo-American syndicated television series very loosely derived from the film. During the 1960s, he made guest appearances on such series as The Barbara Stanwyck Show, The Americans, Route 66, Alfred Hitchcock Presents, Perry Mason, Wagon Train, The Great Adventure, Daniel Boone, Lost in Space, The Time Tunnel, Batman, 3 episodes of The Invaders, an episode of I Spy, and 2 episodes of The FBI, and was a thrush agent in an episode of The Man from U.N.C.L.E. Also branded. Later career. At the start of the 1960s, Michael Rennie made his only Broadway appearance in Mary, playing Doug Winston, a jaded film star. After 2 previews, the sophisticated 5-character marital comedy written by Jean Kerr and directed by Joseph Anthony opened at the Helen Hayes Theatre on 8 March, 1961. It ran for a very successful 1,572 performances, closing at the Morosco Theatre on 12 December 1964. Rennie stayed with the production less than 5 months, to be replaced by Michael Wilding in July 1961. When Warner Brothers cast the film version in early 1963, Rennie, along with leading man Barry Nelson and supporting actor Hiram Sherman, were the only Broadway cast members to carry over. Debbie Reynolds was given the title role created by Barbara Bel Geddes, and Warner's contract player Diane McBain, whom the studio saw as a potential star of the future, took over the socialite part, essayed by Betsy von Furstenberg. Mervyn Leroy produced and directed the film, which opened at Radio City Music Hall on 25 October 1963. Rennie completed what amounted to guest roles in 2 films, The Power and The Devil's Brigade, before moving to Switzerland in the latter part of that year. His final 7 feature films were filmed in Britain, Italy, Spain and, in the case of Surabaya Conspiracy, the Philippines. Personal life. Rennie was married twice. First to Joan England, then to actress Margaret McGrath. Their son, David Rennie, is an English circuit judge in Lewes, Sussex, England. Both marriages ended in divorce. He had a son, John Marshall, with his longtime friend and mistress, Renee, whose later married name was Taylor. Renee was the sister of the British film director Louis Gilbert. During the war years, they lived coincidentally in flats in the White House in Albany Street near Regent's Park in London. The White House was a favourite location to live during the war years. It was built in the shape of a white cross and was such a good navigation mark for the Luftwaffe that it was rumoured that there were standing orders to avoid bombing it, hence its popularity with celebrities and the wealthy. Although Michael offered to accept paternity on discovering the news of her pregnancy, Renee refused, as she was unwilling to jeopardize his growing success as a romantic lead in major feature films. However, Rennie kept a watchful eye on John Marshall over the years, even after his marriage to Maggie McGrath, and both families remained in constant touch until Rennie's death. In fact, Renee and Maggie lived for many years in the 1970s and 1980s within 200 yards of each other in barns and were close friends. Both Michael Rennie and his sister Bunny were very fond of Renee's family. Coincidentally, the British Film Institute's database lists Rennie as also having a son, John M. Taylor, who is described as a producer. John Marshall Rennie used the pseudonym Taylor during his long career in the industry to avoid accusations of nepotism. Michael Rennie was also briefly engaged to Mary Gardner, the ex-wife of Hollywood director Otto Preminger. Less than 3 years after leaving Hollywood, he journeyed to his mother's home in Harrogate, Yorkshire, following the death of his brother. It was there that he died suddenly of an aortic aneurysm almost 2 months before his 62nd birthday. After his cremation, his ashes were interred in Harlow Hill Cemetery, Harrogate. Partial filmography: Secret Agent, The Man Who Could Work Miracles, Conquest of the Air, The Squeaker, Gangway, The Divorce of Lady X, Bank Holiday, This Man in Paris, The Briggs Family, Dangerous Moonlight, This Man is Dangerous, The Patient Vanishes, Pimpernel, Smith, Turned Out Nice Again, Ships with Wings, Tower of Terror, The Big Blockade, I'll Be Your Sweetheart, The Wicked Lady, Caesar and Cleopatra, The Root of All Evil, White Cradle Inn, The Idol of Paris, Uneasy Terms, The Golden Madonna, Miss Pilgrim's Progress, Trio, The Black Rose, The 13th Letter, The Day the Earth Stood Still, as Klaatu, The Desert Fox, The Story of Rommel, The House in the Square, also known as I'll Never Forget You, Phone Call from a Stranger, Five Fingers, Les Miserables, as Jean Valjean, Titanic, The Desert Rats, Sailor of the King, Dangerous Crossing, The Robe, as the Apostle Peter, King of the Khyber Rifles, Princess of the Nile, Demetrius and the Gladiators, Mumbo, Desiree, Dr. Jekyll and Misty, Hyde, Soldier of Fortune, Seven Cities of Gold, The Reigns of Ranchippa, Teenage Rebel, Island in the Sun, Omar Khayyam, Battle of the V1, Third Man on the Mountain, The Lost World, as John Roxton, Mary, Cyborg 2087, Hotel, Death on the Run, The Young, The Evil, and The Savage, The Power, as Arthur Nordland, Adam Hart, The Devil's Brigade, as General Mark Clark, Subterfuge, The Last Chance, Surabaya Conspiracy, The Battle of El Alamein, Los Monstruos del Terror, also known as Dracula vs. Frankenstein, partial TV appearances, Bonanza, Once a Doctor, Asp, A, Mandy, MD, Lost in Space, as The Keeper, 2 episodes, Batman, as the Sandman, 2 episodes, The Time Tunnel, episode number 1, Rendezvous with Yesterday, as the Captain of the Titanic, The Man from U.N.C.L.E., episode, The Thrush Roulette Affair, as Barnaby Partridge, The Invaders, episode, The Innocent, as Magnus, The Invaders, episode, Summit Meeting, 2-part episode.